Normally, I like to nerd out about one running shoe at a time, but every once in a while, I find it worthwhile to zoom out and take a look at a running brand as a whole. This is the Mizuno Running lineup, Spring 2026. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about Mizuno Running as of spring 2026. But before I give you my thoughts on these shoes, I do want to go over some disclosures. Some of these shoes I purchased myself. Some of these shoes were sent to me by Mizuno for the purpose of review. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their brand in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about Mizuno Running, and let's start where I love to start when I talk about a brand, and let's talk about daily trainers. From Mizuno, that's going to be the Wave Rider, and we are on the 29th version of the Wave Rider now. Some distinguishing features of this are the Wave Plate, which is something that Mizuno has put in a lot of their shoes for a very long time. Now, in the language that Mizuno uses to describe the Wave Plate and what it's supposed to do, they always talk about how it's like shock absorbing, but to me, it always feels like a stabilizing element. Now, with the Wave Rider 29, I feel like the Wave Plate's involvement is less noticeable, which for me as a neutral shoe lover, that is a great thing. And they're also using an updated foam, which is pleasantly soft and feels modern. It still isn't like a cutting edge shoe. So if you've been a Wave Rider fan for a long time, don't worry, it still feels like a Wave Rider, but it's updated. I feel like it's more modern. I feel like it's more accessible to a wider range of runners. And I think that people that have like some older Brooks Ghosts or some older Asics Cumuluses definitely should be taking a look at the Wave Rider, because this is the daily training type of shoe that I think you guys are really going to like. Now, if you want something with a little bit more cushion and comfort than the Wave Rider, Mizuno makes the Wave Sky. This is version 9 of this shoe, and this is a shoe that's using two different kinds of foams, a squishier foam up top and a more firm stabilizing type foam on the bottom layer, and there is plenty of rubber coverage. It's a tall shoe, but I don't believe this one has a plate, and this is going to be your max cushion shoe, the shoe that you use for days where your body's feeling a little bit more beat up and you just want to go nice and chill, you want to be comfortable and pampered on that run, or maybe you're one of my bigger, taller friends. This shoe is the one that I would have you guys look at. Now, I was pleasantly surprised by the Wave Sky. It was softer than I thought a Wave Sky would be, but it's not as soft as the styling of the shoe would have it look like. But I think that if you've been liking some of the older Bondi shoes and don't kind of like the new direction that it's going in, then I think that the Wave Sky is definitely something that you should look at. And I would say that these two are Mizuno's legacy shoes. If you've been a long time Mizuno fan, these are shoes that you've probably run in. And for every brand that has legacy shoes like this, there's also usually sibling shoes that are stability versions of these. I can't and don't run in stability shoes, so I don't review them. But if you want to know what the stability version of the Wave Rider is, that would be the Wave Inspire. I think I ran my first marathon in 2010 in a version of the Wave Inspire. And then if you want a stability version of the Wave Sky, that would be the Wave Horizon. Now, after we leave kind of the legacy shoes, then we run into a couple of different capsules from Mizuno. And the first capsule that I want to talk about is the Wave Rebellion. The first shoe that we'll talk about here is the Wave Rebellion Pro. This is version 2, and they are on version 3, but I don't have that one in for testing yet. And this is a race shoe that uses a Wave plate. It's kind of being used as a carbon fiber plate here, and it's also kind of being used as kind of like a normal Wave plate from Mizuno, where it's supposedly going to help absorb shock from the road, but it serves also a very significant stabilizing function. The foam does look really tall and it has this gigantic heel bevel in the back. But technically this is a race legal shoe, but I feel like the foam that they're using, while it is a somewhat modern foam, it doesn't feel as modern as some of the competition that's out there. So while it is a speedy shoe, it's not the kind of cushion that I am looking for when I am looking for a cutting edge race product. And so that's kind of been always my critique of the Wave Rebellion Pro series. But if you're running in the Wave Rider and the Wave Sky, then I think the Wave Rebellion Pro is probably going to suit your preferences quite well. Now, on days where you want a shoe that maybe is faster than you would want to run in your daily trainer or max cushion shoe, but maybe it's not quite as intensive a day as would warrant pulling out the racing shoe, the Wave Rebellion series also has the Flash. Now this is Wave Rebellion Flash version 2, and they are on version 3 of this shoe as well. But this shoe has some features like the racing shoe and some features like a daily training shoe. It is styled like the racing shoe, but the materials that they're used and the amount of cushion and padding in the upper is more built for durability and comfort, kind of like a daily trainer. When we look at the outsole, there's a lot more rubber on this shoe, which again is going to give it more durability and protect this foam. And also the foams that they're using are a little bit of a step down race performance wise from what you're getting in the Wave Rebellion Pro. And there is a much more significant plate in here because you're going to be using this at a wider range of paces rather than just race pace in the Wave Rebellion Pro. And so this is the Wave Rebellion Flash. It's the tempo shoe, the workout or session shoe in this bunch. And I feel like if you've been a long time Mizuno fan, this I think is a really nice lineup for you in terms of the shoes that Mizuno has to offer. But there are also 2 other capsules of shoes, and I think that Mizuno, what they're doing with those 2 other capsules is what I think a lot of brands are doing that have been around for a long time. While they may have their core diehard fans, they are also trying to reach out to fans that they may not have been speaking to previously. And so one of the 2 new collections that Mizuno has that I think is designed to reach new runners and bring in new customers is the Neo series. And the first one I want to talk about is the daily trainer in that capsule. This is the Neo Zen. We are also on version 2 of the Neo Zen, and Mizuno has said that they are going to send that to me. It's been a couple of months, so hopefully that will be arriving soon. But we can talk about the Neo Zen version 1 for now. Now this is going to sit across from the Wave Rider in terms of being a daily trainer, the kind of shoe that you would reach for most of your runs, most of your days. But they're trying to achieve that in a very different way with the Neo Zen. They're using a much squishier and also a much more dynamic foam here. And usually what I mean by squishy is that it compresses a lot when your foot hits it. And what I mean by dynamic is that it compresses a lot and also decompresses a lot. So that way it doesn't feel like you're mushy at the bottom of that foot strike. And I feel like the Neo Zen delivers on that. It's still a little bit on the mushy side, but it's still a pretty dynamic shoe and much softer than what you would get in the Wave Rider. There isn't a wave plate in this shoe, and then the upper is made out of a knit material, and Mizuno has been doing a fantastic job with their knits. It's super comfortable. I love knits, and I feel like it looks great and feels great when it's on foot. Now, for the max cushion shoe, sitting across from the Wave Sky, there is the Neo Vista, and this is Neo Vista 2. This shoe does have a plate in it, but it does also have that really nice dynamic and a little bit on the squishy, mushy side of foam. Also using a knit. This knit is a little bit more tightly knit, has a little bit more structure to it than the knit that's in the Neo Zen, but they're trying to do the similar thing with the comfort and the styling of the upper. I prefer Neo Vista 2 over Neo Vista 1, and I feel like the wave plate is in there. It stabilizes these squishy foams, but also it doesn't make it feel like a stability shoe, which I appreciate. And it's taller and more cushioned than the Neo Zen version 1. And also I feel like this shoe does have the ability to pick up the pace just a little bit for some of those long runs. And then we start looking at the speedier shoes. Now, what's across from the Wave Rebellion series? Mizuno has recently released a new triplet of shoes called Hyperwarp, and here they are. First, we have the Hyperwarp Pro, then we also have the Hyperwarp Elite, and then we have the Hyperwarp Pure. Now, these are 3 shoes that all look very similar, and I would say that these 3 shoes generally are serving the exact same purpose. These are racing shoes, but Mizuno tells me about these is that they're starting to buck the trend of trying to make everything super tall. And they're trying to deliver more of a grounded experience, something that's a little bit more like the old school race flats that are here, but they're using modern foams in order to do it. And then the uppers are super stripped down racing uppers that very breathable, but also very strong, very flexible, but also fit on your feet really well. And to simplify what's going on with Hyperwarp Pro, Pure, and Elite, I think that I would break them down this way. I think that these are all shoes that are more suited for midfoot and forefoot strikers than they are for heel strikers. I feel like the midfoot and heel striker is probably going to appreciate what's going on in the Wave Rebellion series more than what's going on in the Hyperwarp series. But the difference between the Wave Rebellion series and the Hyperwarp series is that the Wave Rebellion series has a race shoe and a tempo shoe. And I think the Hyperwarp series, I kind of feel like these are all race shoes, but 3 different flavors of race shoes. So here's my experience in them. I really like what's going on the Hyperwarp Pro. This is my second favorite of the triplet. And this shoe really reminds me of the original Metaspeed Sky. I don't know if you guys remember that shoe, but it wasn't a gigantic race shoe. It wasn't super tall. And the foam was a little bit on the firm side, but it had a really nice pop that was very pleasant. And Metaspeed Sky was one of my favorite race shoes that came out at the time it did. So that's high praise, I think, for the Hyperwarp Pro. Now for the Hyperwarp Elite, which is kind of like, I think the way that Mizuno is thinking of it is Pro is like regular, Elite is even more Pro than Pro, and then Pure is supposed to be the purest expression of this Mizuno Hyperwarp series. But the Hyperwarp Elite is my favorite of the triplet. I think that the shoe gets a little bit lighter, the geometry stays kind of the same, there's some slight changes, and the outsole changes slightly, but this shoe to me feels like the changes from Metaspeed Sky to Metaspeed Sky Plus. And the Metaspeed Sky Plus is the shoe that I set my still standing all-time marathon PR in. So like the fact that this reminds me of that Metaspeed Sky Plus, I think is really nice. A very speedy foam that has some cushion in it, but is going to be a little bit on the firm side, but lots of pop, lots of great turnover. Really great for us forefoot stompers because it gives us plenty to push into, but then also gives it right back to us in a really nice rhythm. So it's a really fun shoe for me to be able to run in. So having tested both the Pro and the Elite, I was really excited for what the Pure had to offer. And this shoe also has a wave plate in it, just like the other 2 Hyperwarp shoes do. I think this has an outsole that is more similar to the Elite as is the shaping. But whatever is the difference, and I'm not sure what is the difference technically inside what's going on in the Elite versus the Pure, but the Pure feels like it's a much lighter shoe, and it feels like a much more neutral shoe. It feels like there's no wave plate in here at all, and it feels like it's too neutral. And I never thought I would ever say that about a shoe, but I feel like the foam here has gotten to the point where it lacks so much structure that my feet are working extra hard just to kind of stay stabilized in the shoe, and I need a little bit more rigidity in the shoe than what this shoe is providing. Now it looks like there's a plate in this shoe, but it doesn't feel like it at all. This shoe to me feels like a race flat. It kind of feels like a road version of running in spikes, where you really have to have strong feet to be able to run in this one well. I don't have the strength of feet to be able to run well in the Hyper Pure, so this one is not for me. So these are the main shoes in the Mizuno lineup as they exist in spring of 2026. Some of these shoes are like a model behind, but hopefully this helps you understand what Mizuno's been making. Now I want to close out this video by putting together some sample rotations using only Mizuno shoes. Not to say that everyone has to have a shoe rotation or a closet full of shoes, and not to say that you have to use all shoes from one brand in your running shoe rotation, but I hope that by putting these together, it might make more sense how some of these shoes interact with one another. Now we've got 9 shoes on the table here, and I'd like to get that down to at least 4 to start off. And for me, I think when calling from this list, I can get rid of the Wave Rebellion series of shoes, because I think that those shoes are geared more towards midfoot and heel strikers, and when I am running faster, I'm not really hitting that much in the midfoot or heel. I'm hitting a lot more in the forefoot. So those shoes really aren't meant for me, and that's probably why I don't like them as much. I also don't think that I need the Wave Sky, because I don't like the kind of cushion and comfort that the Wave Sky represents. So it's another shoe that's not exactly for me. I also think from the Hyperwarp series, I don't need 3 of these shoes. I could probably get rid of 2 of them right off the bat. I'll get rid of the Hyperwarp Pro and the Hyperwarp Pure. And I'll go with my favorite of these, which is the Hyperwarp Elite. So then the rotation would look like this, where I would have the Neo Vista 2 as my max cushion shoe, and maybe I take it for some easy long runs. I have the Neo Zen as my squishy daily trainer. I would have the Wave Rider 29 for those days where I want a daily trainer but want a little bit more structure to my shoes. Not exactly a stability shoe, but kind of something that's gonna give me a little bit more predictability and support underfoot. And then for racing and for any fast running, I would go with the Hyperwarp Elite. And this is leaning a little heavy on this race shoe in this rotation, but because I don't really feel like there's a great tempo shoe option, at least for a runner like me, I think this is how I would set up a 4-shoe rotation. Now let's see if we can trim this down a little bit further. This rotation as it stands has 2 daily trainers in it, so I think I could probably get rid of one of these 2. And because the Neo Vista would probably satisfy a lot of my squishy shoe needs, I think I could get rid of the Neo Zen, as much as I do really like the Neo Zen. And so with this 3-shoe rotation, I'd have the Wave Rider as my daily trainer. I'd probably use the Neo Vista 2 a little bit more, still kind of reserving that Wave Rider 2 for days where I want something a little bit more firm, which is not every day for this every day. But then for anything that's fast, again, I'd be leaning pretty heavy on the race shoe here. And then if we were to take it down to just 2 shoes, I think the shoe that we would get rid of would be the Wave Rider, and it would just be Neo Vista 2 and Hyperwarp Elite as my 2 shoes in this Mizuno rotation. So hopefully that helps make the Mizuno lineup make a little bit more sense. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions about any of the shoes that I talked about today, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to see you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?